Good morning, my friends. How is everyone doing today? This beautiful Sunday, September 9th, 2018. I hope you can all hear me. I was having some camera problem, but yeah, I think we are all good to go. So we're going to talk today about step 4 of 12, and that is according to the 12-step program of the Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think it's great to talk about them because we can apply these 12 steps to all facets of our lives. And these are really steps to help us get out of that place of struggling to meet day to day. So, and it's a lot of demand. Hold on, I'm just sharing this on my own FaceTime as well. And hang on 1 second, I apologize. Hold on. Some people watch it on my own personal, and I want to make sure that they get this as well. So they also get to know Kardec Radio. All done, I believe. Yes. Okay. So again, we're talking about the 12-step program. We already went through 3 weeks of the 12-step program, and now we are going to step 4. Why is step 4 so important? And perhaps step 4 is one that we might have a lot of difficulty with, because what it says is that we must exactly, it says this: make a searching and fearless inventory of ourselves. Now, when I make an inventory of myself, when I do a search within myself to look at my qualities, but to look at my character defects, you may call, sins, you may call, whatever it is that you want to call this search inside, it's fundamental for you to move on from step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1 being admit that you have a problem. In this case, we're doing depression and anxiety. You have to admit that you are experiencing depression. You have to admit that you're experiencing anxiety. If you don't admit your troubles, then you can never get out of them. So step 1, the Alcoholics Anonymous, is to admit that you're an alcoholic. In case of depression and anxiety, admit that you have a problem. And sometimes you need help from somebody else for you to admit that you have a problem. Step 2 is to admit that if you really give yourself into this, some higher power, in this case God, can restore your sanity. With his help, you can restore back an orderly and happy life. Step 3, we said that we not only have to understand God and to know that he can help you, but we have to surrender, and we have hope. We have to hope. And we also, on top of that, we have to take action. We need willpower. We do need that to get out of whatever problem we have. In step 4, you have to take an inventory of your life. It's important to even write it down. Write down everything that does not work in your life. Why depression? Why anxiety? Why are you so anxious? Or why are you feeling so sad, so depressed, so, it's no longer that feeling of just the blues. It's much more than that. It's something truly serious. I always call the lights off of the world. So you just hide within yourself. But why is that? So unless we are sincere with ourselves and we start looking at our lives and really taking an inventory of what has possibly led us, in the case of AA, to drink, but in our case, to be so anxious or to be so depressed, there is always a cause. And we know in Spiritism, we know that the primary, to me, the most amazing thing is to understand that for everything that we go through, there was a cause, and we were part of the cause, if not completely in charge of whatever it is that's happening with us. And why that is, because God is fair and God is just. And like Albert Einstein said, he doesn't play dice. So there is a just cause for what you're doing in your life and for how you're feeling in your life. It's not a sense of punishment. But at some point, if we don't take an inventory of our, let's say, sins or defect of character, whatever you want to call these, most of the what would I say? Most of the emotional instability that we have has to do with really the way we lead our instincts, the way we work our instincts. But then we say, well, instincts. I thought you can't really rule out your instinct. Those are things that run amok and they're in your unconscious. Well, instincts, if you think about it, of course, we need instincts. We need pleasure, sexual pleasure, in order for us to find a partner and procreate. We need hunger in order for us to eat and not starve to death. We need we need love in order for us to seek others and live in a community. So we need security, safety. So this is all in order for me to have a house, for me to be able to protect my body from danger, from the elements. So those instincts are perfectly okay, and they're needed things in our lives for us to survive. The problem with instincts is that once they run amok, and once you don't delegate between instincts, what I need and what I want and what I need, you will come up with a lot of problems. And those problems are, I would say, almost all the reasons for depression and anxiety. And AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous book, also says the same thing. They're nearly completely responsible for drinking because we get this thing of self-justification. We start to justify once we don't get something. So, oh, I didn't get the promotion, so let me drink. Oh, my team won, or my team did not win, or everything will cause you some kind of a reaction, some kinds of a sadness to your ego, or to your id, let's put it that way. And so you want more of that, or you want less of that. You behave as a child. Now, again, friends, this is not about judging anyone. It's for us to search within ourselves and see what are my ids? I mean, what are my yes, what are my ids? What is this instincts that I need to check? Let's just understand a little bit of what id, ego, and superego is, because it does make sense. I'm not into one theorist at all. I like to get good things about all the psychological theories. Now, Freud said something that I think is very, very amazing. His theory of personality consists in these different phases. And the first one, it's the id. The id is pretty much our unconsciousness. Most of it is our unconscious. It's everything that we need, all those things that we just talked about. A baby, let's think of a baby. A baby cries because he needs food, he needs warmth, he needs love, he needs to have his toys, he needs to have things that to make him comfortable, to make him happy. So our id, let's put it's our instinct. Then we have the ego. The ego is the second part of this personality theory. And the ego is really representative of our reality. So the ego knows what it wants. It has that, the id wants something, but the ego says, well, I have to make sure I can get this. I can't just satisfy you, id. Like I have to actually, you want all this food, or eat, but I actually have to work for the food, and I have to watch because I have an illness that I can't eat this kind of food. So the ego kind of mediates between the id and then the superego. And the superego is our moral. The superego is really that above, that, what we would call our real conscience, let's put our God, the ethics, the moral of, should I be buying all these things and not sharing with others? So the ego is yourself in the middle, kind of, delegating between the id and the superego. So when your ego is too inflated, it is, well, I want this food, and you know what? I don't care about it. I'm going to eat as much as I want, because you kind of push the superego away. So let's say a good example, you're driving a car and you stop at a stoplight and it's night and no one's around. Well, what do? If you stop at a stoplight and there's no lights, no one around, do you go? Do you look around? Or do you wait for the light to turn? Well, the id is that part of yourself that says, just go. There's no, forget it. Forget the red light. You're it. Just keep going. So the id just cries out, it's all about you. The ego will say, well, let me stop a little bit, look both sides. I'm not going to obey the red light because you know what? There's nobody here. And then you go. So the ego already has something saying, let me look so I don't get punished, but I do deserve to just go. And the superego will say, no, there is law, there is order. I don't want to, what if something happens? Let me just follow what is right. I'm going to stop until the red light turns green. Okay, I hope that I could explain this in a simple way. And why does this have to do with anxiety, depression of the 12-step program? Because pride is the master of all illnesses. Once we start taking inventory in our lives and looking at where are the sins that I have to work on, and I say sins because I'm using the Christian sins, okay? But you can call it whatever it is. What are the things? And we know pride is the beginning of it. And we have, pride, greed, lust, sloth, wrath, gluttony. So we have all of those. And if you think about it, most of those that get out of hand cause us to have either depression or anxiety. So if we don't go back and take an inventory of where I'm kind of listening mostly to my ego, the ego is kind of like, yeah, I can do it. I don't really have to pay attention to others. Or I do deserve more money, regardless what happens, regardless how I get this money. Or if we look back and we take an inventory, that's when we start admitting our weaknesses, admitting our temptations. Because how are we going to do if we don't get those things? Well, we either get anxious or we get depressed. Now you see where I'm going with this. So if I look at, for an example, the 7 sins, and I take them and I say, well, in a case of greed, correct? And if I really pay attention and I say, well, I need to get more and more and it's all for me and I have to join. Maybe I lived in a place that was so, that food and water and money and all of this was scarce. So now I need to get all those things. I'm going to hoard a lot of money. I'm going to hoard a lot of things. And for that, I need to work a lot. And sometimes I may not work for the money that I'll get, and I'll find other ways to get it. And you may not even understand why you are working 15-hour days, 18-hour days, and you are so anxious and you're so depressed. And unless you get to the bottom of that and you really understand that greed is becoming the motivated power behind your actions, then you're going to continue to do that. But then once you understand and you say, maybe in a past life, I really needed and I didn't have. So this, I'm going to have excesses. See, every excess shows that there is an emptiness. Everything that I need to go overboard something, my underneath reason for that is because there's something that I need to fill. So once I know that greed is the bottom sin, let's use that word, towards my excessive work and hoarding of money or hoarding of things or hoarding of people, people that need to have 20,000 people on their Facebook. I have so many because I do talks and people always ask. And of course, I will accept everyone. And again, but it's not because I need to have, I only have a few friends, and that's perfectly beautiful. If you have 200, good for you. The problem is the need to have. If you have 1 or 2 people that you can trust in your life, that's amazing, So again, if I don't understand that my greed, that I am greedy, then I'll never take care of that. And greed will lead to anxiety, or to depression. To anxiety because I always need more, and to depression because at any point that I don't meet my goal with how much I need, then I go on the opposite. pendulum, really. So that is why we need to really sit down. And AA says, in the case of AA, it'll say, why do you drink? We usually drink, really, it's this relationship with our instincts. We don't meet, and then we drink, and then we self-justify. Oh, I'm drinking because my team won. I'm drinking because they lost. I'm drinking because my president is excellent. And I want to celebrate. I'm drinking because we got an awful president, so I need to just cry my blues. I drink, and so with anxiety and depression, we also justify. And we have to really pay attention, because if I don't pay attention and, oh, what did I do here? Okay. And if I don't become completely honest with myself, then I can never cure that thirst, or I can never cure that depression. Why have I taken refuge within myself from the world? What is it so scary? What is it that I fear so much out there? I fear to be alone, so I'm going to lock myself in a room. I'm not saying that this is a conscious decision, but we can bring it to consciousness if we take inventory. That's why it's so important. Kardec has said so many times to know thyself. And Kardec has really emphasized, especially in the gospel, according to Spiritism, how much pride really is the main downfall of society. So if we throw our pride away and we say, okay, I'm going to put my pride and I'm going to be humble and take an inventory of everything that is not working for me, everything that is not, it's really my id, all my instincts, all the things that I'm going to bring into knowledge. And why do I do the things I do? Once you do that, you will know all your defects, your moral defects, let's put it that way. And it is all about morality. It's all about the everything. It's all about, and we know when we're doing wrong. You know how? If you're doing something and you hear sirens, police sirens, and you run, or when you feel uncomfortable, when there's security or when there's an authoritative figure, then you probably are doing wrong. And that means your mom, that means our husbands, our mom. If whatever it is we're doing, we feel uncomfortable or we want to hide it from the people that love us or from the people that have the power over us, then most likely it's kind of, it's doing something that isn't correct. And that's where I have to stop and say, why am I doing that? So when I'm depressed, I must stop and think. Let me take inventories of all my life. Let me sit down and put down why I reacted the way I did in different situations. Did I eat too much because I was so emotionally drained that I kept eating and eating and eating, and it became gluttony? But I eat, and then I ate so much and I gained so much weight, and now I'm starting to feel bad about myself. And then eventually I just go into a depressed state because now I'm obese and I don't believe anybody loves me. But what is it that made you start the excessive eating? Was it pride? Was it and all of these things go back to pride. Not to blame at all. This is for us to do this inventory. Why is it? Oh, because I remember when it all began, it was the sense of I had to look so beautiful according to the magazines, and I really didn't meet that. So I went the opposite way. I started eating. Or I had this husband or this lover that didn't pay attention to me. So instead, and I couldn't talk back, so I started eating. But that was a way, that was a wrath, that was an anger. I had all this anger for this person who was mistreating me. And instead of dealing with the problem, I started eating and overeating. But that was this anger, that I was eating out of anger. Again, you see where I'm getting at. Look at all your behavior that doesn't make sense for you to be a happy person, and go back, take an inventory. So this is really a beautiful process of analyzing yourself in step 4 for depression and anxiety. Freud would say, what part of how much responsibility do you have over the problem that you are experiencing? he had this question, and it's really, really a good question for us to ask, because in step 4, you stop blaming. You have to. You will never be able to own yourself, to get out of any power that you don't want over you, and really take the bull by its horns. You cannot blame others. You can't blame situations anymore. And that is not to say that you've had awful traumatic events or people that did you harm or events that happened that you didn't have any control over. It doesn't take the seriousness of what has happened to you. It just will free you from blaming them and living up to them and living still tied to that. So once you free yourself, then you're free to change, to move on, to stop the drinking. But in this case, to get out of this depressed state, to get out of being so anxious that everything is a danger. Again, my friend, make this conscious decision to sit down, write it down on paper, take an inventory of everything that no longer works in your life. Take inventories of your feelings, take inventories of situations that you still blame perhaps your depression or perhaps your anxiety onto them. I'm anxious because I remember that one day I was in an elevator, or as a child, I fell into this hole. Or once you understand, and what does that episode, what did that bring to you? Can you get out of that past? And sometimes we need therapy to help us, and that's wonderful. But we need to put our pride on the side and truly throw ourselves into admitting the part of the responsibility that we have to take. And once we stop blaming, believe me on this, once you stop blaming, then things will start working out just great. Thank you, friends. Have a wonderful Sunday.